It was a true giant of the ocean, a marvel of human creation. The RMS Titanic, born in a Belfast shipyard, was the largest moving object ever built by human hands at the time. When it set sail on its first and only voyage from Southampton, England on April 10th, 1912, the world watched in awe. People called it the Ship of Dreams, a floating palace destined for New York City. Its builders were so confident in its design, with its 16 watertight compartments, that many believed it was practically unsinkable. This magnificent vessel represented a new age of technology and ambition, a powerful symbol of progress in a rapidly changing world. It was more than just a ship, it was a promise of a grand future. The Titanic was not just large, it was a showcase of the very latest technology. It had a powerful Marconi wireless system, allowing passengers to send personal messages, known as Marconigrams, across the vast, empty ocean. A true wonder for the era. The ship was powered by immense steam engines, turning 3 enormous propellers that pushed it through the Atlantic waters at a swift pace. For the comfort of those aboard, it featured electric elevators, a heated swimming pool, and its own electrical power plant, which was more powerful than those found in many cities. This was not merely a vessel for transportation. It was a self-contained, modern world, demonstrating humanity's growing mastery over the natural environment. Inside, the Titanic was a spectacle of unparalleled luxury, at least for some. The first-class areas were designed to resemble the finest hotels and stately homes of Europe. There was a grand staircase, crowned with a beautiful glass dome, where wealthy passengers would gather. They could dine in a Parisian-style cafe, read in a quiet library, or exercise in a state-of-the-art gymnasium. The suites were decorated with ornate wood paneling, plush carpets, and elegant furniture. For those who could afford a first-class ticket, the journey was an experience of pure indulgence and comfort, a floating testament to the opulence and social status they enjoyed on land. This incredible ship was the pride of the White Star Line, a British shipping company. It was the second of 3 Olympic-class ocean liners, built to compete with the rival companies for the profitable transatlantic passenger trade. Everything about it was designed to impress, from its 4 towering funnels, one of which was just for show to make the ship look even more powerful, to the fine china used in its dining rooms. As it sailed out into the North Atlantic, carrying over 2,000 souls, it was a breathtaking sight. It represented the pinnacle of industrial achievement, a gleaming white and black behemoth cutting through the waves, seemingly invincible against the forces of nature. On board the Titanic, a passenger's experience was determined entirely by their ticket. The ship was a perfect reflection of the rigid social structure of the time, separated into 3 distinct classes. First class was home to the world's wealthiest people, famous industrialists, aristocrats, and celebrated artists. They lived in a world of private promenades, lavish multi-course meals, and personal servants attending to their every need. Their quarters were spacious and beautifully appointed, often larger than apartments on land. For them, the Titanic was a floating social club, a place to see and be seen, where the voyage itself was as important as the destination. Their journey was one of extreme comfort and privilege. Below them, both physically and socially, were the second-class passengers. This group was made up of professionals such as teachers, engineers and clergy, as well as middle-class families. While their accommodations were not as extravagant as those in first class, they were still remarkably comfortable, comparable to first-class travel on other, lesser ships. They had their own elegant dining room, a library, and dedicated deck space for enjoying the sea air. For these passengers, the voyage was an exciting adventure, a chance to travel in a style they might not normally afford. They were a world away from the luxury above, yet still enjoyed a high standard of travel. Further down in the ship, in the less desirable areas near the noisy engines, were the third-class passengers, often called steerage. This was the largest group on board, consisting mainly of immigrants from across Europe seeking a new life in America. Their experience was vastly different. They slept in simple, crowded cabins with bunk beds often shared with strangers. Their common areas were plain and functional, with long wooden benches instead of plush chairs. They had just 2 bathtubs for over 700 men, women and children. Despite the modest conditions, there was a sense of hope and excitement among them, as the ship was their vessel to a future filled with opportunity. The division was absolute. Gates and barriers were strategically placed throughout the ship to keep the classes separate. First-class passengers would never wander into the third-class general room, and third-class passengers were not permitted on the upper decks. This separation meant that people from different social worlds lived side by side for days, yet never interacted. The Titanic was, in essence, 3 different ships in one. The deck you walked on, the food you ate, and the air you breathed were all determined by the price of your ticket. This strict social order would have profound and tragic consequences when the ship began to sink into the icy waters. The night of April 14th, 1912, was unusually calm and cold. The sea was as flat as glass, and the sky was clear and filled with stars, but there was no moon to light the way. The Titanic steamed ahead at a high speed, its crew confident. Warnings of icebergs in the area had been received throughout the day, but they did not cause significant alarm on the bridge. The vast, dark ocean seemed peaceful, hiding the immense danger that lurked ahead. For the passengers, the evening was like any other. In first class, people were finishing their lavish dinners. In third class, a lively party with music and dancing was winding down. No one could have imagined the horror that was about to unfold. At 11:40 p.m, a lookout in the crow's nest suddenly spotted a dark mass directly in the ship's path. It was an enormous iceberg. He frantically rang the warning bell and telephoned the bridge, shouting, "Iceberg right ahead!" The officers on duty acted immediately, ordering the engines to be reversed and the ship to be turned sharply. But the great vessel was too large and moving too fast. It could not turn in time. Instead of a direct collision, the Titanic scraped along the submerged, jagged edge of the iceberg. Many passengers felt only a slight shudder, like a gentle vibration, and thought little of it, returning to their beds or conversations. Below the waterline, however, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg had punched and torn a series of holes along the ship's starboard side, breaching 5 of its 16 watertight compartments. The builders had designed the ship to stay afloat, with 4 compartments flooded, but not 5. Water began pouring into the forward section of the hull at an unstoppable rate. The crew, after a quick inspection, delivered the grim news to the captain. The great ship was mortally wounded. The unsinkable Titanic was in fact sinking, and they estimated it had only a couple of hours before it would disappear beneath the waves forever. Panic did not set in immediately. At first there was mostly confusion. The crew moved to uncover the lifeboats and ordered passengers to put on their lifebelts and gather on the boat deck. But the process was slow and disorganized. There had been no lifeboat drills, and many passengers, still believing the ship was safe, were reluctant to leave the apparent security of the giant liner for a small open boat in the freezing darkness. The ship's wireless operators began sending out distress signals, CQD and the new SOS, desperately calling for any nearby ships to come to their rescue. But the nearest vessel was hours away, far too far to reach them in time. As the Titanic's bow dipped lower and lower into the water, the stark reality of the class divide became a matter of life and death. The instruction for loading lifeboats was women and children first, but access to those boats was not equal. First and second class passengers were located on the upper decks, close to where the lifeboats were being launched. They were guided by stewards through familiar, well-lit passageways. In contrast, the third-class passengers were housed deep within the ship's maze-like lower decks. Many struggled to find their way through confusing corridors and up staircases, only to find the gates to the upper decks locked, trapping them below. This physical separation had a devastating impact on survival rates. The evidence is tragically clear. Over 60% of first-class passengers survived the disaster. For second-class passengers, the rate was around 42%. But for those in third class, the outcome was grim. Only about 25% survived. While some men in first class nobly gave up their seats, the system itself was stacked against the poor. The lifeboats were also launched half-empty. In the initial confusion, a fatal error that cost hundreds of lives. In the end, your chance of survival on that terrible night depended heavily on whether you had a ticket for the top decks or the bottom. By 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, the great ship's final moments arrived. The stern rose high into the air, silhouetted against the stars, before the Titanic broke apart and plunged into the icy depths of the Atlantic. Over 1,500 people were left in the freezing water, their calls for help echoing across the silent ocean before fading away. The tragedy sent shockwaves around the world. The loss of such a celebrated vessel, filled with so many people from all walks of life, was almost incomprehensible. The story of its sinking became a powerful and enduring legend, a cautionary tale about human pride and the unforgiving power of nature. The sinking of the Titanic led to profound and immediate changes in maritime safety. New international regulations were created, requiring that all ships carry enough lifeboats for every single person on board. 24-hour radio watches became mandatory, ensuring that distress calls would never again go unheard. An international ice patrol was established to monitor the location of icebergs in the North Atlantic, but the lessons go beyond safety rules. The Titanic is a timeless reminder of the dangers of overconfidence and the tragic consequences of social inequality. It teaches us that, in the face of nature's power, compassion and fairness are our most essential tools for survival.